Well, you can cry me a river, cry me a river.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, it's all go as we are preparing for Christmas, and I would imagine the same applies to all of you. So, without further ado, I'm going to plunge in because today I have the task of going through episode 4 of Harry and Meghan's Phantasmagoria. I have to tell you, I have come up with over 40 unbelievable, over 40, can you believe it? 40 manipulations, calculations, in willful inaccuracies, outright lies. I hope I can whiz through it. So I'm actually going to put the girls to one side and just plunge right in, because I really hope to actually get through as much of this as possible today without having to have this split up, into 2 separate episodes. Okay? So, I'm going to start out with one question or observation by one of my wonderful viewers, user CS5YY4TS80. Observes, it is said that Beyonce's staff was asked if they recall Beyonce sending a text to Meghan, and they said no, not after the Oprah interview took place. And Jacinda Ahern's office has announced that she took part in the program in 2019 before Harry and Meghan got involved, and that she was not aware of their involvement. So what are we having here? The A-listers yet again putting distance between themselves and Harry and Meghan. Then we have the Toronto Police Chief, James Raymer, who has responded to Meghan's claims in the couple's documentary, if that's what you can call the documenting of fantastical nonsense, that she was being stalked. Poor Megsie baby. Aurora, come and comfort Lottie. Megsie baby was being stalked by the paparazzi in Canada 24 hours a day, 9 days a week, 72 days a year. Well, he said, there are always people who are never going to be happy. He also suggested, after Meghan accused her neighbours of selling her out and behaving honourably, and going to the trouble of, or I should say the treachery, really, of having cameras installed in their properties that were looking into hers. And he suggests that those claims were inaccurate. Well, quite frankly, if I were Meghan's neighbours, I would club together and sue her, because yet again, she has thrown out an idle accusation which is general and can't be substantiated by truth, fact, or anything external. So, if I were her neighbours, I would club together and I would have a joint lawsuit against her for defamation, because she has defamed all of them by suggesting that some of them were doing this. And it's really simple to narrow it down legally. Anybody who would have a camera that would have access to her property is in her line of vision, and therefore she was in their line of vision in a different way. That's what I would do if I were them. So now we plunge into episode 4, which started as it intended to continue, with a lie. I've covered the lie in a previous episode, so I'm not going to go into it because we have so much ground to cover. It's Meghan stating that Samantha Cohen referred to her as an organism and pointed out some fantastical nonsense to her, which I am told Samantha Cohen would never have done and didn't do. But you know, Meghan has all of these fantastical memories of events that happened. Oh, celebrations in the street of South Africa. Oh, akin to Nelson Mandela's release from prison when she married Harry. And of course, let's not forget the Air Canada steward who doffed his cap at her, even though they don't wear caps. But she has a clear memory of him doffing his cap at her. Lie number 2 is the assertion that Meghan had a miscarriage caused by the male litigation. Now, why do I say I think that's a lie? Because Meghan is a 40-something-year-old woman who, if she were pregnant, would stand something like a 3% chance of carrying the child to term naturally. Why is the other 97% being ignored? And even if the percentages are wrong, the fact remains the same. Everybody's to blame for everything that goes wrong, or indeed right, with Meghan, because even when things go right, she then spins it around so that every gift became a liability. So I would mark that down as a lie on those grounds alone. I don't think I need to particularize the other grounds why I not for a second believe that Meghan's miscarriage had anything to do with the Mail on Sunday litigation, such as it was. Number 3, lie. The miscarriage story has changed from the New York Times account. So which one is the accurate account? The Netflix account or the New York Times account? I just make that point for what it's worth. Lie number 4 is that William was complicit in placing stories both true and false. So he wasn't only a Judas, he was also a liar when he wasn't being a Judas. About them, lie number 5. According to Harry at the Sandringham Summit, he had a choice of 5 options, and he took number 3, which was the option to be in and out. And they declined him that option. Well, I'm afraid that doesn't make sense. If you're given 5 options, the 5 that are on the table, whichever one you choose, stands. I don't for a second believe that Harry was ever given option number 3 to be in and out. I think that was his hope. I think that he was never given that option. And I think for very good reason, which I'm not prepared to go into. I think the whole thing is at best manufactured by Harry so that he would be able to not fail in Meghan's eyes, because he was under strict instructions to deliver the head of John the Baptist to his Salome. Now, I don't for a second believe lie number 6, which involves the Thomas Markle letter, where Abigail Spencer and that other woman, Lucy Fraser, are pretending that they, off their own bat, took the contents of the Thomas Markle letter to People magazine, and Meghan had nothing to do with it. How did Abigail Spencer get that letter? Except from Meghan. How did she know about the contents of that letter? Except from Meghan. Are we supposed to believe that she took such personal, private information that Meghan had confided in her, violated the confidence without consulting Meghan, and that having done that People magazine trashed Thomas Markle, a letter that Meghan is on record as having stated that she wrote with the belief that it could, and I personally think she meant it would, be leaked. She states in her witness statement that she hoped, that she expected her father to leak it. She wrote it, according to her, in the August, and by the January, when he hadn't done anything, she did something. Well, let's take her at her word. She wrote it expecting it to be leaked, and when he didn't leak it, she did. That's my take on it. If they think I'm defaming them, sue me. Because then, at the point of discovery, we will discover in the law, through the lawsuit, who did what when. Line number 7 is even more bizarre than line number 6. Harry not remembering who lived in Nottingham Cottage before, even though it was William. William and Catherine had lived there for 2 years. And Harry is saying he didn't know who lived there before. I mean, what he didn't want was to violate his victim status by saying, I have no cause for complaint. My brother and sister-in-law, both of whom are considerably taller than Meghan, managed perfectly well for 2 years in Nottingham Cottage, while Meghan, the little shrimp, found the ceilings too low and the cottage too small. She's so grand, she's so noble, she's so privileged. Sorry, she worked her way up from the gutter. Which one is it? Line number 8 is a study in manipulation, dishonesty, and quite frankly insulting the intelligence of the viewing public. You have some man whose name I don't wish to sully my mouth with, who claims to be an expert and who claims to own a company called Bot Sentinel, which claims to be expert on discovering who bots are. And he asserts boldly in the show that Harry and Meghan were the victims of trolling. The only problem with that is Twitter did its own investigation and refuted those claims absolutely. Also, Netflix has claimed that this company, which really is not a proper company because it's effectively a sham, as the man who heads it up has admitted himself that he has been trolling William and Catherine. Well, how can you be an expert on preventing trolling when you are a major participant in the practice of trolling? He claims he has a 95% accuracy. Well, he has a 4.5% accuracy maximum. The studies show his claims are out by nearly 92%. I mean, you couldn't make this up. He is a self-proclaimed expert with no accreditation to back up his claims. Nevertheless, supposedly reputable magazines such as Forbes and Newsweek, and of course a reputable company, supposedly reputable company like Netflix, is advancing him as an expert when he has no expertise in the matter whatsoever. He never studied it. He's never worked in it before. The company is effectively a joke. I mean, at best, Forbes, Newsweek, and Netflix are justifiably guilty of sloppy journalism. Newsweek and Forbes, we can let off the hook thereafter. Netflix, I don't think so. They have purposely advanced as an expert somebody they should have known was not, and who is as guilty as sin of the very thing he is accusing people of being, which is a troller or whatever it's called. Line number 9 is the quote, "Times are changing. She's the first ever global princess." What does that mean? Meghan was not the first ever global princess. She's not a global princess. She's a British princess. She's not the first princess of colour. What about Princess Angela of Liechtenstein? Just as a little example. I go no further than that. Line number 10, because we have a lot of ground to cover. Line number 10, Meghan's touching claim after she fled Britain. Speaking about the steward on the Air Canada flight. He took his hat off and said, "We appreciate everything you did for our country." And it was like the first time I felt that someone saw the sacrifice for this country That's not mine. What an accomplishment. The steward took off his hat, even though they don't wear hats, number one. And number two, if you wear a hat, you wear it out of doors, not indoors, and certainly not on a flight. If you are a man, male hats are taken off once they are over a fixed roof space. So not only has she told a pointless lie, well, it's pointed, actually, it's not pointless, it's pointed, because it's meant to make us think that somebody had finally acknowledged her sacrifice. Her sacrifice. Her sacrifice. I'm sorry, she's reduced me to tears. I'm sorry. Left eye, left eye. She's just reduced me to tears. On her behalf. So noble, so self-sacrificing. The cheap and vulgar hustler sacrificed herself and then tried to sacrifice everybody else because she wasn't getting what she wanted, which was to be half in, half out, and milking the system and working being royal the way she's worked every other asset she's ever had. That's right. Worked them. Line number 11 is, we landed in Canada and one of our security guards, sorry, I should get into character. We landed in Canada and one of our security guards who had been with H, my wonderful H, for so long. And these guys were so wonderful. Just like Julia Roberts. So modest and demure. I'm so appreciative. Anyway, to continue. Who had been with H for so long, and these guys were so wonderful. I just collapsed in his arms crying. I tried so hard. That's the piece that's so triggering, 'cause you go, and it still wasn't good enough, and you still don't fit in. Well, Meghan, sweetie pie, ladies don't collapse in the arms of male employees. Your mother-in-law learned that to her cost. Because I'm the person who revealed to the world, thanks to her information, that she had stepped out of the marriage first, and she did it with her private detective, Barry Manakee. And now you're telling us that you collapsed into the arms of this security guy. Do tell us what happened after he mopped up your tears. We'd be very interested to know if that's another leaf you took out of your mother-in-law's book. Not, of course, that I'm accusing you of anything except cheap and vulgar conduct, because ladies don't collapse in the arms of their male employees under any circumstances, not even for the delectation of your dumb, sympathetic public on Netflix. It simply shows what a total vulgarian you are. Line number 12, lost opportunities. This couple is going to be the one that changes the face of the royal family for me. There's a picture of Harry in the background with a load of white people and Meghan cuddling a girl of colour, and Meghan comments, And I was really hopeful that that was true. Except she wasn't. She had an opportunity, and by her own account, since she wasn't being paid cash for it, she discarded it. Number 13, it flashes to their wedding with her in white. Remember, she was a virgin. And the black choir. And the choir is singing. Well, first of all, that was the king's idea. Wasn't Meghan's idea? Let's remember, Meghan is a self-hating woman of colour who's passed for white for most of her life. And really has a huge issue with the British press and the British people for embracing her, not as a white woman, but as a woman of colour. But when we're speaking about the marriage at St. George's Chapel, surely that's a total lie, because Meghan has told us in the Oprah interview that they were married 3 days before. So that cannot be true, can it? The spectacle at St. George's, although she seems to have conveniently forgotten her previous lie. Lie number 14. On her first and only engagement with the Queen, she claims that she felt that the Queen was being just grandmotherly. And she, Meghan, appreciated it so much. And let's not forget, this is the engagement where she shot off ahead of the Queen. And when she effectively said to the Queen, well, should I go first or should you? And the Queen was gracious enough to say yes. She bolted first. I mean, you talk about pushy, but the issue here is her claim that she took care of her grandmother in her last months and years and days. Well, she didn't. I know that from the Markle family. She didn't. Thomas Markle paid for his mother to be in a nursing home, and Meghan only occasionally visited. So yet again, her visits become taking care of her grandmother. Yet another lie. I mean, this woman seems incapable of opening up her mouth without a lie spewing forth. Lie number 15 is not actually a lie. Or we hope it's not a lie. Hope. But it's certainly in questionable taste. It is the display of a scan of the baby Archie when, and wait for what she claims, they were pregnant with him. Who is they? That's a question I'd like an answer to. No doubt that it's a scan of Archie. But they? Who's they? I thought only one person carried a baby. Interesting that she has more than one person carrying that baby. Very dubious, the whole thing. Claim number 16 is, Harry states, you'd started to show already in New Zealand. Well, the New Zealand tour ended on the 31st of October. The baby was born on the 6th of May. Do the math. Do the math. who shows... Oh, and also, let's remember that Meghan was already supposedly showing at Eugenie's wedding, which was on the 12th of October. I don't know about you, but I've never heard of any woman showing when she was 2 months pregnant. At least not if she really was pregnant. The whole thing is very bizarre. Very bizarre. Unless, of course, she started to show as soon as semen met over, or ovum, I suppose it would have been, since it was only one child. So when semen met ovum, immediately the belly popped. I tell you, they really take us for fools. Lie number 17 is a false narrative. There's Abigail Spencer and Lucy Fraser claiming that Australia was the turning point for Meghan and Harry because they were so popular with the public. And then I think it's the Spencer woman who says something about the internal, whatever the internal is, at the palace were so incredibly threatened by that. No, they weren't, sweetie pie. They were thrilled that Meghan and Harry were popular. Meghan and Harry are the ones who thought, ooh, like the B-grade movie star of the 1930s or 50s who wants to overthrow the studio because she's not an A-grade movie star. Well, Meghan was a D-list ensemble player, number 6 on the call sheet list, in a television series that was a cable television series. So she wasn't even a B-grade movie star. It went straight to her head, and she wanted to capitalize upon it. The palace was not threatened by Meghan's popularity, nor by Harry's, because Harry was already the most popular royal after the Queen. And nobody had been threatened by that. I just make that point for what it's worth. Number 18 is a gross manipulation via the press narrative. There's a sensationalism in Netflix, quoting Piers Morgan saying their popularity will eclipse William and Catherine and won't be a good thing in the longer term. Well, Netflix is very adept at using press exaggeration to advance its, Netflix's and Harry's and Meghan's narrative, and losing all sense of proportion of the fact that every intelligent person knows that the press always sensationalizes everything in the United Kingdom. So they are laying down false trails by going with this sensationalism and exaggeration of Piers Morgan in this instance, as if it were factual. But when Piers Morgan speaks indisputable fact, they repel that and stay, it's not true. Well, I mean, the lack of logic. Lie number 19. Harry picks up a ball and boldly asserts that someone who marries in and is stealing the limelight and is doing the job better than someone who was born to do this. That upsets people. It shifts the balance. They are laying down a false narrative to excuse Harry and Meghan from behaving the way they did. Number 20. they dragged Diana into the mix. What Harry doesn't seem to understand is that Charles didn't mind Diana's popularity, because they're accusing Charles and the royals of being jealous of anybody who is more popular than whomever they decide should be more popular. And this is totally untenable, because, as I've pointed out a little while ago, Harry was the most popular male member of the firm, and nobody had a problem with that. Now all of a sudden, they're trying to do Harry and Meghan down because of their supposedly great popularity. And they're using the example, and Harry's using the example, of Charles being jealous of Diana. Well, Charles wasn't jealous of Diana. Now, I'm the person who wrote the first book on Diana and exposed her. So I think I know enough about this subject to be able to comment with some authority, if I may be so bold as to state. And I made the point in both my Diana books. Charles was not jealous of Diana. Initially, Charles was thrilled with Diana's popularity, in much the same way that John F. Kennedy was thrilled with Jackie's popularity, and even said at the state banquet in Paris that he's the man who accompanied Jacqueline Kennedy to France. That was Charles's attitude, until Diana started to deliberately upstage him. There was an incident which I recounted in my books about her stealing his thunder and going behind his back, literally, on the stage and playing the piano, things like that. He was annoyed and upset by her willful malice in stealing his thunder when it was inappropriate. That's not the same thing as being jealous of her popularity. But now that it suits Harry to make his father into the scapegoat, really, and his mother into the archangel, which she certainly wasn't, everything is twisted. Number 21, there are unethical clips of Diana in the Bashir interview. Then Diana is furthering the Netflix and the Harry claim with media, because Diana says, with the media attention came a great deal of jealousy. Complicated situations arose because of that. No, nobody likes their thunder being stolen. And Diana's excessive competitiveness was odious and destructive. I said it at the time and I'm repeating it now, and who doesn't like it can lump it, because that's the fact. 22. Deception. They're blaming the royal family for planting stories against Meghan. Then what do they show? A lead story in the National Enquirer in the US with the words Enquirer exclusive. Queen Elizabeth blasts Meghan over diva behaviour. Well, Alice was going to be leaking a story. It wouldn't be leaking it through the National Enquirer in the United States of America. Take my word for that. It's a fact. But they just lay the ground very cleverly and don't understand that when a slug slithers across a surface, it leaves a trail of slime. And they are slugs, and they're leaving trails of slime, of their manipulation and their dishonesty in purveying a lie as if it were the truth. Line number 23. James Holt accuses, and James Holt, of course, is their employee. He's about the only white person on the program, I've got to tell you, which is really rather interesting, except for her two friends that I can think of who spring to mind, Abigail Spencer, and, oh no, there's three, Lucy Fraser and Silver Fox, or whatever her name is. Because Meghan doesn't seem to actually be very consistent in certain ways. But James Holt is the only professional that I can see in that show that is white. The rest of them are all either black or mixed race, pushing a very racist line. And James Holt pushes on their behalf not only racist lines, but destructive lines. He's accusing the royal family of preventing them from destabilizing the monarchy with their popularity, and says that the royal family was putting them in a box and making them irrelevant. Well, first of all, just the use of the word box shows you where that thought came from, because boxes are Meghan's specialty. How was the royal family putting them in a box? They don't say. They don't say how, and they don't say that behind the scenes on the Australian tour, there had been a lot of aggro, and Meghan's behaviour had not exactly been positive, nor had Harry's. They don't say any of that. Line number 24. Two other publications are then chosen to prove the point. Closer, which is a Bauer publication and international, and Showbiz Cheat Sheet, which again isn't even British. So there they are, flashing up all these clippings and newspaper headings and magazines, and they're not British, but the agenda is that the British press was doing them in. I mean, of course, they know most people won't have sufficient knowledge to notice these things. So it's just slap them with lies and everybody's going to believe everything. Well, not all of us are that ignorant or gullible, thank God. And I don't think that the public should be more knowledgeable than the public are, because the fact of the matter is the public have better things to do with their times than be expert on Harry and Meghan or the manipulations of a television or a streaming or a media or a press company. Number 25 is Abigail Spencer's yet another lie. They started to tear them down. They, of course, are the royal family and their cohorts, I suppose you'd say. Well, that is a total lie, because at that stage, the royal family and their advisors were desperately trying to keep Harry and Meghan in. Meghan and, to a lesser extent, Harry, were the ones whose aim was to be out, because Meghan had this planned from the word go, because Meghan never gave up her business links in the United States and was already trying to merch and commercialize and make money out of being a royal. And Harry, pathetic Harry, enchanted Harry, whipped Harry, was going along with it. Line number 26 is, there are loads of false analogies that Netflix resorts to. They have a whole load of pictures of, for instance, with the bump touching. They capture Catherine putting her hand on her bump once. And then they have Meghan clutching her bump for dear life, as if she doesn't check it might disappear or run away or deflate or something. They then have the comparable of avocados as a morning sickness for Catherine, but with Meghan's fondness for avocados, the fruit is linked to a drought. And this is supposed to be the palace being racist against Meghan and doing Meghan in. Except the press always, when they're writing a story, use, if they can, at least the press in Britain, they use as examples public figures. And the more topical and controversial the public figure, the more often they use them. So the fact that they said that Meghan's favourite fruit, which she had often said, is avocado, and that avocados were very water intensive, is not doing Meghan in. It's just a story. But of course, it's a convenient way of Netflix, Harry and Meghan, trying to make out that Meghan was being victimized. I mean, you talk about throwing in everything but the kitchen sink. Line number 27 is justifying Meghan's breaching dress codes for ladies, not just royal women, ladies. They mention shoes. Then there's Harry claiming that Meghan's off-the-shoulder day dress was perfectly okay because Catherine wore a one-shoulder evening dress. Well, we all know Harry's really intellectually challenged, but even Harry has to know that day dresses for ladies and royal women, but not only royal women, ladies. I mean, let me put it this way. Formal day wear, which you wear to Royal Ascot, you cannot have off-the-shoulder attire, whether you are a man or a woman. It's just not done. Yes, evening dresses allow you to have bare shoulders, but day dresses under no circumstances. So, a false narrative. They're painting a picture with lies and deceptions and misrepresentations. Number 28 is another deception. Jacinda Andrews, who's the author of The New Age of Empire, is wheeled on to lay the blame for Meghan's refusal to behave properly and respect the rights and customs of others. And her failure to respect those rights is not she being disrespectful, it's everybody else being racist. He says the UK is perfect at doing this. Nobody wants to be openly racist, for that wouldn't be civilized and wouldn't be British. But it's perfectly fine to kind of dog whistle and give a nod to it. She's a diva. She's making people cry. A kind of angry black woman trope. It just rarely came to the fore quite suddenly. Well, it came to the fore because Meghan and Harry were abusing the staff, and the underlings at the palace were leaking what was going on to the press. That's how that got out. Excuse me, Mr. Andrews. She is a diva. I mean, she made the 3-year-old child Princess Charlotte cry. She made the recently delivered of a child, Catherine, then Cambridge, cry. She made several members of staff cry. How are they racist? How is anybody racist to call her out on that? And when she's called out on it, you're saying it's a kind of angry black woman trope? Excuse me. I most likely know more black people than you do. I'm Jamaican. I was brought up in a country that's primarily black. And nobody in Jamaica expects a black person who behaves badly to be excused on the grounds of their skin color. So why are you expecting this to happen in the United Kingdom? That smacks to me of racism. And the fact that Netflix is promoting this says that it is behaving in a racist manner. Line number 29. Harry claims even in newspaper stories using links to drugs and terrorism is racist. Well, I'm sorry. If you're a drug runner and you're black, you shouldn't get a free pass. Nor should you if you're white or brown or yellow or any other color, pink or green. Same applies to terrorism. This idea that black people, or what you'd call people of color, are to be given a free pass for bad behavior, including drugs and terrorism, on the grounds of being black. I mean, this is insanity. It's also rank racism. Line number 30. Meghan claims the tabloids can't be dismissed as people believe them. She then uses a catastrophic example in the program. And this is where the real problem arose. And I'm not going to go into great depth about this. I'm going to simply skim on the surface. But this was the turning point, because Meghan and Harry were terrified, Meghan especially, that they had compromised themselves, and that by doing so, this had been done in front of the press, and that if the press noticed, or worse, ran with it, that their deck of cards could and would come tumbling down. And it's at that point that Meghan panicked, I suppose you could say, or maybe came out fighting on the basis of offence is the best form of defence. Meghan says that they were in Liverpool. Then she says, and I quote, "Then we had a walkabout in Liverpool when there was a group of women, and one of them said to me, 'What you're doing to your father is not right.'" That's right, Meghan. I said it in my book. That's what's going to be your downfall. Anyway, to not ruin the narrative. "What you're doing to your father is not right." It was the first time I went, "Oh my God, people actually believe this stuff." And then my entire centre was rocked to its core. Notice that admission. This is where the game changed. According to her, it changed that same day. But this, in my opinion, is the cover story for why it changed. And I'm not going to tell you why it changed. I'm sorry. I'm not going to tell you why it changed. But it changed. But the fact of the matter is, her conduct towards her father was terrible. And it was always going to threaten her. And it did. So to that extent, that's true. Now starts the real lies and manipulations, because they now understand that they are skating on very thin ice. And they need to distract everybody from what might have been observed. So this is now a massive distraction exercise, which they have run with from that moment on. Harry says the lies, which were the truth, interesting, but he calls the truth lies, what they, whoever they are, were doing to her, the suffering, no one sees what's happening behind closed doors. You're damn lucky nobody saw what was happening behind closed doors. And your problem was that what was happening behind closed doors was beginning to pop out. Netflix then lays the ground by using an example of the young Diana in floods of tears in the back of a car with his dad, and says, and I'm quoting Harry, "We're almost there, and 30 seconds to wipe away the tears and slap on some makeup, and then the door opens and smile and everything is fine, and flash, flash, flash." Harry is referring to demeanor that I described in Diana in Private and in the Real Diana, where Diana in the early days would cry before an engagement until she arrived, and then come out of the car beaming. She was really an actress getting over nerves. Stage fright. But Harry, you can't wipe your tears away and repair your makeup in 30 seconds. It doesn't happen. It can't happen. It takes more than 30 seconds to put on makeup. And also, of course, Netflix, now in number 31, resorts to a sleight of hand to further this false narrative, because they're switching photos. There's one photograph of Diana and Charles approaching an engagement, and then another with Diana dressed entirely differently, grimacing as if she's tearful at another engagement. Then the camera pans to Meghan looking morose and pained at the cenotaph engagement in honour of the war dead, as if Meghan is also suffering in public. Well, I'm afraid, Netflix, you don't beam beatifically when it's the Remembrance Sunday in honour of the millions who died in the 2 world wars. You people are really absolutely offensive. Now we have Lucy Fraser, who chips in and says, it was just gloomy. She was like disappearing inside of herself. There's a heartfelt shudder before they pan to Abigail Spencer, who's clearly an actress. I've never seen her like that. It was hard, very hard to talk about. I was really scared. Now we pan to Meghan. All of this will stop if I'm not here. The dates are relevant. The Liverpool engagement was the 14th of January. And Meghan on the 16th of January is now claiming to be suicidal, desperate to suppress what happened 2 days before and make sure it never sees the light of day. So she's now going to be playing the suicide card. All of this will stop if I'm not here. And that was the scariest thing about it, because it was such clear thinking. I'm sorry for laughing. I've been suicidal. I have recently been appointed as an ambassador for a leading suicide charity. And Meghan is opportunistically jumping on the suicide bandwagon and saying, because it was such clear thinking, if she was suicidal, she'd know you would never say something like that. But you know, these people give themselves away at every turn because they think phoniness is interchangeable with authenticity. Then Meghan nods her head in denial. So really, her body language is telling you that she's lying. I mean, which I believe her body language, you know, actions speak louder than words. And then up pops Doria. Uriah Heep on steroids, or is it grass? I remember her telling me that she wanted to take her own life. And that really broke my heart, because I knew it was bad. But to just constantly be picked at by these vultures, just picking away at her spirit, that she would actually think of not wanting to be here, that isn't an easy one for a mom. Yet again, we have the mom. For a mom to hear, you know, handkerchief comes out to wipe away tears. Not that you see any tears. Then sniffle, sniffle, watery eyes, but no tears. And I can't protect her. Age can't protect her. More dabbing of the eyes. And then it pans to Meghan and Harry kissing. His voiceover. I was devastated. I was devastated. I knew she was struggling. We were both struggling. But I never thought it would get to that stage. Blah, blah, blah. He goes on and on. Then he blames his inadequate response and them attending the engagement at the Royal Albert Hall. And he blames making her go on his royal role and his royal training. That this is problematic, and I'm going to tell you why. They were absolutely right to be terrified. And I have no doubt that she was playing every card in the book in case what had gone down came out. Let me put it that way. But it didn't. And they're really dumb to be belaboring the point, because it's now only a matter of time before what went down does come out. Let's see if she commits suicide then, because what went down is definitely not going to be something she or he wants to come out. I make that point for what it's worth. So, to make sure that Netflix stirs the cattle into the corral, because they obviously think we're all cattle, and we're going to be stirred into the corral, they now lay the ground for what is effectively assisting in one of the grossest and most flagrant sleights of hand and manipulations ever perpetrated upon the public. They now show pictures of Harry and Meghan, the loving couple, happy as clams, with him embracing and failing her. And he says, what she needed from me was so much more than I could give. And Meghan pops in with, I wanted to go somewhere to get help, but I wasn't allowed to. They, whoever they are, were concerned about how that would look for the institution. Total lie. Total lie. Harry, they knew how bad it was. Then Netflix pans to a shot of cameramen, doubtless from the Harry Potter premiere or some such thing, misleading people into thinking that pursuit by the press is this problem and the issue at hand, when the press certainly were not pursuing them about any of this, and any fears of the press pursuing them were entirely due to their conduct in this particular regard. And I'm being mysterious, but I can't say any more than that. What she needed from me was so much more than I could give, said Harry. And Meghan says, I wanted to go somewhere to get help, but I wasn't allowed to. They were concerned about how it would look for the institution, Harry. They knew how bad it was. They thought, why can't she deal with it? Everyone else has dealt with it. Why can't she deal with it? But this was different, really different. Yes, it was. It was different. I know how different it was. They know how different it was. No, it was hugely different. But more than that, I cannot at this juncture say. Then Harry says, but if you strip all of that away and you say, all right, it was all exactly the same, then he makes the point that why should she just suck it up? But no one would have private conversations with editors saying, enough. My dad said to me, darling boy, you can't take on the media. The media will always be the media. I said, I fundamentally disagree. Well, he never told his father what the real problem was. He kept it from him. Had he told his father what the real problem was, I'm sure his father would have been as concerned as he and she were. But he never told his father. And it was a huge problem of their own making. And on that note, I will say, I'm sorry, this cannot go on any longer because it will encroach too much on your time. The rest of it I will do in another episode. But thanks for listening. I hope this has been of some interest. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and keep the questions and comments coming in, please. This cannot be done without you. And may I end by saying, this Netflix series is going to turn out to have been the biggest error of Harry and Meghan's life. It furthers the fears they had that arose in January 2019. And you know, the one thing about being terrified of something happening is that you can be then so injudicious that you actually bring about the very thing you fear. And on that note, I'll say, God bless. See you on Saturday. Bye-bye.